example we actually did last time, but again, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you how to solve it using proportions. Okay, so the first one I'll do again just for fun, but again, we're assuming that our car, we're able to drive 300 miles on a tank of 20 gallons. You know, that's what we're assuming. So we have a rate there, don't we? And we want to express that as a unit rate. Well, as a rate, we have this. 300 miles divided by 20 gallons. Now, how do we get that as a unit rate? Well, what we have to do is essentially change this 20 into a 1. Of course, we have to do it algebraically. What we can do is factor 300. And 300 is actually the same as 15 times 20. So what do? 20s cancel, and we get 15 miles per gallon, or 15 miles per 1 gallon. Same thing. Now we have a unit rate. That's good. That means we're in good shape now. Now, just like we did in the previous example, we're going to use a proportion to solve the next part. Well, wait a minute. Okay, good. I thought I deleted it by mistake. Okay, so now what we want to do is figure out how many miles we can drive if we have 35 gallons of gasoline. Now, so how are we going to do that? We can use a proportion. What I'm going to use is I'm going to use that unit rate that we just came up with, right? That's what this is. But we also have another rate, don't we? We have X is how many miles we're going, and we have 35 gallons of gasoline, right? But again, this rate also is how far we're going on gasoline, for that car. Or if you want the miles per gallon, that's better, right? We get 15 miles per 1 gallon. This rate is telling us how many miles we get per 35 gallons. Well, they both deal with the same car, right? Miles per gallon, so they have to equal each other. And because they equal each other, we can figure out what X is. Okay, so let's do that. What do? Again, notice also before we solve it, the corresponding units are in the same position, in the corresponding position. Miles is on top, gallons on the bottom. I'm just saying you don't want 15 miles over a gallon here and 35 gallons over miles here. You don't want to do that. Okay. So from here, we get this. Again, you can think of the units as canceling off. Now we have to figure out what this proportion is. We have to solve this. And that's not too bad. Namely, what do? Well, we just cross multiply. 15 times 35 is X times 1. So basically over here we have just X. Over here we have 15 times 35. Here I just interchange the two. In an equation you can do that and we get this. You really want to have the variable on the left side over here. I mean, technically it's not right to have it on the right side, but if you left it over here and just say 525 miles equals X, I'm not going to take off points for that. So we have this. So with our car, since we get 15 miles per gallon, on 35 gallons, we can get 525 miles. We can drive a distance of 525 miles. That was fun. Okay, now for the next, let me also show you that if we did not have the unit rate, if we had the rate from earlier, the 300 miles per 20 gallons, and that's what I'm saying here, if we had that, we could still solve the problem. In other words, you don't have to have a unit rate, is what I'm saying. Okay, so this tells us miles per, number of gallons. This one does also for the same car. So just like up here, these two have to be equal. Again, I'm just using this rate instead of this one. Okay, so now again, we just solve for x. Just like before, these units are gone. We're left with this. And then just like before, what do? We cross multiply. Cross multiply, and we get this. 300 times 35, 20 times x. And how do we get x? Well, we want to get the 20 out of there, right? We interchange both sides of the equation. As I said before, it's good to have the variable on the left. Now, we want 20. We don't want 20x. We want only x. So what do? Divide by 20. And then once we divide by 20, we get our answer. So we get x again is 525 miles. Let's see, I just want to make sure that this thing is, okay, good, it's not frozen, good. Okay, so we have that. Okay, let's move on to the next part. So again, we're dealing with the same problem here. What we're going to do now is figure out how many gallons are needed to drive 30 miles. Again, we have the same car, all that stuff. Okay, so again, we can solve this using a proportion. I did try solving this last time with the factor label method, but I thought people got a little confused. So I figured let's try proportions. So it's actually nice because again, we have this rate, although if you wanted to, you can use the unit rate from the previous slide. Here though, we have miles, we don't know gallons. So that's why we have this. We have this rate, in other words, 30 miles per x gallons, but x is what we want to know. We don't know what x is. We have to figure that out. But this rate, again, it's basically miles per gallon for the same car as this one. So that's why they're equal. Okay, so we got to figure out what x is. Okay, so let's do that. It's just like before. And notice again, let me point out, corresponding places, right, give you the same units. So you want to make sure the units are in the corresponding spots. So at the bottom here, you have gallons. Top here, you have miles. I mean, what you don't want is as you go across, you get a different unit. You start over here as 1 unit, in this case miles, go across, you get the same unit. Over here, same thing. You have a unit gallon, you go over here, you get gallons, same unit. I know there's an S here, but it's really the same unit. So again, now those units are gone, this is our proportion, and it's just like before, we solve for x by cross multiplying. Cross multiplying. And that's what we're doing here. We get 300 times x on the left, 30 times 20 on the right. And now what do we do next? Well, we want to get x, right? I mean, this is telling us that 300 times x has to be 600. Okay, but how do we get x? We divide. And then once we divide, we get x equals 2 gallons. I know some of you might be thinking, wait a minute, couldn't you have just gotten that by going to this and then doing some basic algebra like canceling a 0? Yeah, you could have done that. But again, I don't know everyone's math background here, so I'm erring on the side of caution, which is why I'm doing the cross products, cross multiplication. That'll work no matter what. So, all right, that was fun. Now, let's see, we are here. Before we get to this example, are there any, let me just pause the recording. Are there any questions at all?